Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I brought back Theresa because this is one of those episodes where I need somebody who can really weigh in on this discussion. So what we're going to talk about today is something, it's a controversial subject, and it's a set of controversial episodes. These are from the TV show that we watched as kids and we were obsessed with, and that show is PBS's Arthur.
I'm not sure obsession is the right word, addiction more likely, because I wasn't obsessed with Arthur. It's just, I'd watch it every day, and I didn't love it that much. It's just, we didn't have a lot of TV channels, and so we would watch Arthur every day.
Well, the thing is, we were watching Arthur before you were born. This was kind of a TV show. We started watching, you were born in 99. We started watching it,
Don't out me.
Yeah, well, I think people can realize that you're pretty young. We were watching it in 97 and 98, I think, when we first were exposed to the show, and then in 99, that's when it kind of culminated into, that was my brother and I's favorite show, and then as we got older and Theresa became more, she grew
up. When I developed a brain so I could watch things.
When she was able to watch these shows, Theresa became a huge fan, and I think you're correct. It was kind of the go-to show. It wasn't like the show that we were losing sleep over because, it was just so exciting, but it was the show that we had to watch at 3 o'clock every day after school.
It was on at 7:30. And
it was moved to 7:30. It used to be on at 3, then it was moved to 7:30 a.m., which makes no sense to me because kids are going to school, and how are kids going to watch the show
if they're homeschooled? It was made for me.
It was made for
me. They knew.
All right. Well, that's how we came to be exposed to Arthur. But speaking of exposure,
Arthur exposed us to some interesting things.
That's true. We are going to talk today about 3 controversial episodes. I think 2 out of the 3 were banned. The first episode from Arthur that we wanted to talk about, I actually polled the staff at the Daily Wire about this because I was so adamant about my point of view on this episode. And it is the episode, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the episode where
Arthur, it might be called Crash with an exclamation point.
I think you're right. It is the episode where Arthur hits DW. Now, Theresa, why don't you explain to the audience what does DW do to warrant this action?
Well, let me just get it out there. This is an 8-year-old hitting a 4-year-old girl.
Yeah.
We're going to get to
8-year-old boy hitting a 4-year-old girl.
We're going to get to that in a minute, though. So the premise of the episode is Arthur gets this plane kit he's wanted for a very long time. It's really hard to make, really difficult to make, and so he gets it and he puts it together, and DW keeps wanting to get into it, and he keeps telling her no because she's going to break it.
For people who haven't watched the show, Arthur is the older brother and DW is the younger sister.
I just said he's 8 years old.
I know, but they needed to know they were related.
Arthur is creating this airplane, and it's not meant to be played with. It's a model. It's meant to just be looked at.
Yeah.
He doesn't want DW to get into it because he's worried she's going to break it.
I'm laughing because you remind me of DW sometimes.
That is really insulting, and that really hurts my feelings. And we're going to talk about that later. That really hurts me. I'm not going to argue about that. I'll take it to court later. But she keeps wanting to touch the plane, and he keeps saying no, and he kicks her out of his room over and over again and tells her no because he says she's going to break it because she wants to play with it. So he finally makes the airplane, and then it's drawing with the paint, and so he says, DW, get out of here. I don't want you to touch it because it's drawing. And he goes down because Buster's at the door, and so
Who is Buster?
Buster is Arthur's best friend who's also 8 years old and is also a rabbit.
Arthur's an aardvark.
Yeah.
This makes perfect sense if you watch the show.
Everything makes sense. You don't really notice it when you watch.
No, you don't.
It just becomes like real life.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Arthur leaves because Buster's at the door or something like that, and so DW sneaks into his room, opens the door, finds the plane there, and starts running around the room against Arthur's orders, playing with it. I think also that the parents also told her not to play with that. I don't remember exactly though.
Yeah.
Anyway, she starts playing with it around the room, and then she sees the open window, and she thinks, oh, it makes perfect sense for me to throw this plane out the window because then I can watch it fly. So she throws the plane out the window, and then obviously it breaks, and so it breaks into a million pieces. This plane that Arthur had just been so excited for, so excited to build, that he had told DW a million times, don't touch or you're gonna break it. And then she gets hold of it and she breaks it. And then DW immediately walks down the stairs to Arthur and Buster. She doesn't even lie about it, and she's just like, that's an awful plane you have. It doesn't even fly. And then Arthur, I love the pain on Kelly's face.
It hurts.
Arthur realizes that he does the he used to do on the show all the time for a gasp. He runs out the door, and for some reason, like, storm clouds have gathered in the scenery, and there's these really dark clouds and this wind blowing. So Arthur runs out to the sidewalk and sees the plane just crushed on the ground, and a DW follows him, and Arthur is just kind of like, I told you not to touch it. Why did you do this? And DW keeps babbling over and over again that, well, it wasn't my fault that the plane couldn't fly. The plane should be able to fly. I can't know that it's not going to fly. It should have flown. What a stupid plane. And though Arthur grits his teeth at this little imp, pulls back his fist.
In a very now famous gif of the fist shaking.
He pulls back his fist and he punches DW in the arm, and then she cries like this. Ah! Ah! Now, before we move on, I need to explain something to you. Because you might say, at this point, well, we're going to get to the question, I need to give some context.
Okay, go ahead.
The context is, you might say, well, this is a little bit terrible, but wait a minute. You have to remember, D.W. Reed, that's her full name, she doesn't sound like a little 4-year-old girl. In this show, she was actually voiced by a boy.
Yes.
So she has a deep voice.
Clearly a demon-possessed boy.
She has this really deep voice, and how do I describe it? She doesn't seem like a little girl. She seems like this thing.
She's a monster.
She just seems
She's
like
a monster spawned from hell.
And so the rest of the episode is about how Arthur should not have hit DW because she's just a little 4-year-old girl who didn't know any better. So, the entire point of the rest of the episode is that Arthur needs to learn that it's wrong to hit people, even if they are monsters. It's wrong for him to hit this little 4-year-old girl who just didn't know any better. And, he learns his lesson at the end. They do a big, long talk about it. This episode actually got a PG rating when it first came out because of the violence.
And it was subsequently banned. It no longer airs even in Arthur reruns. So, the big question is, should Arthur have hit DW?
And
Don't answer. I just want to tell everyone, as I said, I am very passionate about this episode because as an oldest child, I can completely sympathize with Arthur. And now I'm not condoning children hitting each other under any circumstances, unless one child is beating up on the other, then the child that's getting beat up should probably hit back. What I'm saying is, there's got to be some more sympathy for Arthur because it was just really bad.
Yeah, my problem with the episode, and I think this is actually why it got banned, maybe not because of the violence, is it's meant to teach older siblings not to hit children.
Yes.
But as we can see with Kelly, it kind of just made them want to hit their younger siblings. But I think the problem is, the point of the episode is to be like, 4-year-old girls, 4-year-old boys, they just don't know, and yes, they're going to do terrible things, but it's kind of like your cat or your dog. They do terrible things, and you might get furious at them, but they don't really know any better.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think that this episode sends the wrong message to kids because it builds up this case. Let me finish. It builds up this case to side with Arthur. So kids watch this episode. I watched this episode as a kid and I thought, I would have hit her too. Are you kidding? Yeah. So I guess I think that's an excellent point on Theresa's part, actually. This episode sends the wrong message.
Well, what I was going to say is, just agreeing with your point, it doesn't portray DW as this innocent child who just didn't know. And, it could have portrayed her as, she just really wanted to play with the plane. She didn't understand it.
It portrayed her as a realistic child, is what it did.
No.
Yes.
It portrayed her as a cartoonish monster.
No, I have dealt with children who have behaved in this way, trust me.
Well, that's true. I used to run a daycare very briefly, and
we all know how that ended.
The next episode we're going to talk about is an episode. Well, I want to mention this about.
Let me introduce this episode because you got to talk about the last one. The episode we're going to talk about is near and dear to Theresa's heart. We recently watched a video. Somebody sent me this video. Actually, it was Jacob Airy. Sent me this video critiquing the episode we're about to talk about. It's the one, what's it called? Bleep? It's where Arthur tries to teach kids not to swear.
The show does, not Arthur himself.
Well, Arthur, the show, tries to teach kids not to swear.
I have a question.
Wait a minute. This opens up a myriad of problems, as you can imagine. How do you teach a kid not to swear without saying the words? So
you make them watch Jurassic Park. That's how my dad taught me not to swear. You see that?
Same.
You see that word that man is saying as he's getting bloodily chewed up by that T-Rex? Don't say that.
Don't say that word. No, that's the same for me. I said one of the words I heard at Jurassic Park, and Dad said, "You better not say that. That's a bad word." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that was bad. I better not say it." And I said it again when I was older.
I have a question. My question is, did you actually watch Bleep when it came out, or did you just see it? Really?
Yes.
I'm surprised. Because
we watched
the story behind Bleep is that it only aired once. It only aired once in 2003, and I was surprised.
I remember watching it.
It came on in 2003, and I kind of like I think it was Scott Kramer who did the video. Mm-hmm. I kind of like him. I thought it was a weird fever dream I had once. But it's a really weird episode, and there were multiple. I actually remember multiple kids episodes of different shows because I went to my best friend's house when I was younger. We watched a lot of Cartoon Network, and there was another episode just like this on a different show. It was on Baby Looney Tunes actually, where they would have this premise. I bet there was like some producer some children's producer behind the scenes in Hollywood who's just like, "Oh my goodness, how do we teach kids not to swear? Oh, what do we do? We'll bleep out the swear word. We'll teach them about bleeping, and that way kids will know not to say these imaginary, evil, creepy words." And that producer probably got into all these shows and just kept having those episodes around that. This is a brilliant idea, and I know for a fact all these episodes are banned now. But so Bleep,
it was probably the same guy who made all these episodes.
The whole premise of Bleep is that a character, DW again in this case, she seems to come up a lot. She hears a
DW is like the catch-all for any child that we want to have something bad happen to.
Yeah, she is in a glass shop. We won't get into that. And she hears a teen boy swearing at his mom. He swears at his mom, but they don't do the swear word though. They just do
you don't hear it. You just see the mouth kind of form the word, and then they bleep over it. And there's always this weird thing in the episode where whenever the word is said, a character will do something shocking like, oh, or they'll break something. And so I was watching this as a kid, and I just, I must have been 4 because it was 2003, and I was just like, what the gall darn is going on? Because I didn't understand what they were doing, because they do this weird thing in the beginning where they have Arthur watching an adult show. I know now it's The Sopranos. They call it the Altos, which I think is kind of funny. Yeah.
But I had no idea what that show was. I just, Arthur is watching. I picked up that it was an adult show and they were probably watching something bad. I'm like, what is going on Arthur today? And so then there's just this bleeping, and every time, because I was familiar with swearing and not to swear at that point, but every time this bleep comes up and a character goes crazy, or DW imagines them to go crazy. She imagines the world blows up at one point, and Mary Moo Cow breaks an egg, and that was really weird. She imagined the moon falls, and the world explodes over this word being said, and I was just thinking as a child, that's not what happens with swear words. What kind of a word is this? And then it's kind of funny. I shouldn't have said that. She tells, she won't say it to an adult because she's afraid how they'll react, because she really wants to know what it means. So she gets a 3-year-old to say it to her parents, and this is actually really funny. She gets a 3-year-old to say it to her parents, and then she's watching them with binoculars out the window to see if the 3-year-old is gonna say it. And it's I don't know, it's just really funny. And then there's this weird plot about how
hang on, you're getting ahead of yourself. So this is Dorothy. This is DW's. Her name is Dora Winifred, by the way. This is DW's big plot scheme, whatever. She says the bad word to a 3-year-old, says it's a really cool, exciting word, but you should never say it in front of your parents, knowing that a 3-year-old is going to go directly to their parents and say this word. So then she runs upstairs after having called her 3-year-old friend, told her this. Why is a 3-year-old answering the phone? I'll never know. But she runs upstairs with binoculars, is looking through the window at the neighbor's house to see if she can find out when she says the word, is watching, and her mom, DW's mom, is downstairs calling her down for dinner. And DW keeps saying, just a minute, I'm doing something. And her mom says, no, you need to come down right now. And she says, just a minute, I'm waiting. I gotta see something. No, DW, you gotta come down. You gotta come down. And then she cusses her mom out. and there's a sudden silence for a moment when DW realizes that she has just said this word, which nobody is supposed to know. And she says this word to her mom, and then mom comes upstairs.
And she calls her by her full name, Dora Winifred Reed. But
what did you just effing say?
No, what I thought, two things I thought in this situation are really funny. One, I just thought it was kind of, you see, this is why this is such a bad influential episode. Because I
find it hilarious.
Because here's this 4-year-old girl who sounds like a boy, and she's just yelling at her mom, and then all of a sudden she starts cussing her mom out. And then, what I thought was even more funnier is how the phone call between her and her 3-year-old friend must have gone, because you said they wouldn't let a 3-year-old would answer the phone, so it must have gone like, whatever the little girl name, I think it was Rosita or something.
Yeah.
Rosita, come, DW, your friend's on the phone. Hi. Oh, that's a cool little thing. Okay. What did she want to say to you? What did she say to you, honey? She wanted me to say this to you. What did she?
As you guys can tell, this episode was banned.
What did she want to say to us? And then it's marvelous.
This episode was banned for all the wrong reasons. It's a masterpiece.
This 4-year-old was doing this.
This episode is a gold mine for comedy. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But the thing is, it's not really an episode that kids should be watching.
It's not an episode that teaches you not to swear.
It's not. It teaches you that this is funny or that this is a joke. And I think that it's just frustrating because whether it's in school or in the TV, it's like these people think, oh, we're now the parents of all of these children. We're like the secondary parents to all of these kids. So we need to now be parenting the kids from the TV. We need to be parenting the kids from the school or the classroom or whatever. And these are just things that your parents should be talking to you about, not the TV, because the TV is not going to be able to answer your questions. The TV is not going to be able to present these situations and issues in an appropriate light for children that is not going to make it comedy, because that's what these 2 episodes we've talked about have done, and it's hilarious, and I love every
I want to
minute
add
of
this.
it.
Well, it's funny now because I'm an adult. But an adult,
quote unquote 21.
But when I was a little kid and I finally picked up what the episode was doing, I was always like, "Oh, what word was it?"
Yes!
That's what I was like ever since. I was always like, "What word did they use? What word did they use?" What
the
word did they
entire
use?
episode. Even when I first, that was the only thing I thought about the first time I watched the
it makes
episode.
you curious.
I was 12 when it came out, and all I could think of was, I wonder what word it was.
Because you see
I wonder what word it was.
You see all these things, and you see the context he's using, and you're like, "What word is it?" Oh my goodness. I'm just thinking of the 3-year-old.
Here's the thing. And there have been YouTube videos about what word did DW say on Arthur? What was the bad word? And again, it's another example of how all of these kids that watch the show that are now adults with YouTube channels did not take away the right lesson from the show. All right, so we're moving on to the next episode, and I don't know what the title of this one is.
I think it's Mr. Ratburn and the Special Someone.
Oh gosh, that makes me gag. So basically what happened is Arthur decided to go, Arthur had always kind of been a little social justice warrior-y, and then they really, took a nosedive in the later 2000s, and they decided... They decided it would be very important to have a gay character in the show, among other things. Their previous attempts to do kind of social justice warrior things kind of backfired because they did a whole episode on cancer featuring Lance Armstrong, who later turned out to be a drug user or whatever.
Yeah.
Big problems. They had to pull that episode, yet another banned episode. But it just goes to show you that don't try to social justice warrior unless you're absolutely sure that your cause is without holes, because
to be fair,
that was a problem.
In terms of trying to say relevant progressive topics, they did one episode I thought was pretty good where the school is set on fire, and then it talks about I just thought writing wise it was pretty good, and they show how the different kids deal with that.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
It was supposed to be I don't know if it was an earlier episode or a later episode. It either came out around 9/11, I don't think it did, or it came out when there was a school shooting or something, and I thought that was a fine way to just talk about kids dealing with trauma and stuff.
Yeah, that's not a bad way of dealing with it. I'm not saying all social justice warrior episodes are a problem or a bad thing, but this one kind of takes the cake because this show had been on for 15 years at this point, with characters that we come to know and love for years and years and years, that we knew the ins and outs of. If there was going to be a major character development in one of them, it should have happened years and years prior. Yeah. So what they did was they decided to retcon Mr. Ratburn, who was a single 30-something elementary school teacher, maybe 35, and he had a younger sister, and we knew all of that, and so then they decided, let's make Mr. Ratburn gay, because he's been single for too long, and you know what it means when you're single too long, that must mean you're gay.
Well, I watched the episode. I had watched parts of it before we did this, and then right before we did this episode, because we were talking about controversial episodes, I watched the whole thing. It's an interesting episode. I want to mention, I just thought that the writing quality of the show in general is just kind of bad, because you see they're trying to pull from things they used to do, and they're just less funny now. Like Mr. Ratburn, he doesn't have any personal life, and it's the kids saying that in the beginning, and that they did a whole episode in the past, for exploring, no, teachers do have personal lives. Yeah. Mr. Ratburn stays with Arthur and his family for a whole episode. The episode itself isn't actually focused on the fact that he's gay. It's that Mr. Ratburn is going to get married, and the kids are worried that he's going to get married to this really crotchety, angry woman, and that's going to make him a lot worse. And so they spend the first 10 minutes of the episode just, coming off with hijinks of how to stop the wedding and so forth. And Mr. Ratburn is reading poetry, and they pretend to send the poetry book to someone else to get them together. It doesn't work out. And then it gets a little bit weird where all of a sudden all the kids get invitations to his wedding. And I thought that's weird, because why would you invite your third grade class to your wedding?
Yeah.
And all their families. And I thought, maybe, I don't know, I guess Mr. Ratburn said he was close with Arthur's family before. Maybe that's
still
why.
your entire third grade class?
Well, it was the 4 kids and their families, and I thought, well, maybe he's just good with their families. But then, his sister is his older sister, not his younger one, who's supposed to be. His older sister is revealed to actually be this crotchety old woman. They thought he was going to marry his sister, but she's not. And she, for some reason, addresses the class in the middle. I'm glad you obeyed to the wedding, especially his 3rd grade class. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Why are you inviting your 3rd grade class? Why are you getting up in a guy's wedding? Which only housed 20 people I saw, and why are you, half of it was the class? Maybe Mr. Ratburn doesn't know anyone other than his class. Anyway, why are you addressing the 3rd grade class? And then it's revealed that, he's not going to marry that woman. And then he comes down the aisle and it's a man, and that's the big thing. And the kids, that this is what the whole, it's kind of weird, because they spend the entire episode thinking he's going to marry this lady and then trying to set him up with another lady. Then they see a man and they don't even question it. All of a sudden, they were kids who were thinking, he's going to marry a woman, and now they're like, it's a man?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, no questions, it's fine. But this is frustrating to me because I actually hadn't watched the episode, so this is the first time I'm actually hearing about it. And so basically it's a kind of a dig at heterosexual marriage, first of all, which is kind of dumb. And then second, the kids don't have... I did know about this prior to the shooting of this episode. the kids don't have any problem with it or any questions. Even as a kid, like, why is Mr. Ratburn marrying a guy? This is kind of strange.
I want to say something I thought was funny. So, again, we're saying this, Mr. Ratburn was not portrayed as this gay person for all this time. I don't think that was really relevant with his character. He was just a teacher. And like I said, you don't have your third grade class come into your wedding. No. But anyway, I just thought it was funny. So Mr. Ratburn is just kind of portrayed as this single guy. And then I watched the episode, and his husband, because they meet him briefly and they don't know who he is in the episode, he's portrayed as a gay guy. Yeah. Like, you watch him, that's a gay guy. And so I just thought that was kind of funny.
It's just really, really, really... First of all, here's my problems with the episode. You shouldn't be talking about these kinds of things in a kids show, because kids shows are not supposed to revolve around sex, and that's what talking about gay marriage is about. It's talking about sex, and so you would have to explain that to a child, and that's not something. Again, it's the TV trying to be the parent. You can't be talking about this with kids. You shouldn't be talking about swear words with kids. You shouldn't be talking about one kid trying to hit another kid in the fashion that Arthur did. There are better ways to go about having episodes like that, but possibly not targeted at this young audience that Arthur is targeted at, which is 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. Don't need to be talking about gay marriage. That's something to be talked about with their parents, because there is zero respect for anybody who has disagreements with the lifestyle of gay marriage when you put out an episode like that, because you basically what you're saying is, this show is only for people who think like us. We can't have a show that's just generically for kids anymore. You have to have a certain political agenda in order for your kids to watch this. And if you don't have that agenda, your kids are not welcome to watch this show. Or conversely, your kids will watch this show and then think that what we're telling them is more important than what your parents are telling you. And so those are the two problems I have with bringing gay marriage into a kids show. The idea that it's appropriate for a kids show to be talking about sex with kids, especially kids under 11 years old, and that the idea that the TV morals are more important than the parents' morals. It's very frustrating to me when people think that that's okay. So that's my story.
That is the story of Arthur, the controversial episodes.
The controversial Arthur episodes. We hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit longer than I usually do with Theresa, but that's what happens.
Because she wants to hit me. She has deep-seated.
That's what happens when we do an episode where we break down laughing for 5 minutes straight. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please give this video a like. Go over to Theresa's channel and subscribe to her channel. Follow her on Twitter at Theresa Campagna. She's JesterBell on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell. Spit in the spittoon. All that good stuff. And I will talk to you guys on the next episode.
Bye.